Hi everyone, this is No Spoon. Welcome back to part 3 of our Opus track-by-track sort of lyric and story walkthrough. Last time we wrapped up with Earworm, which is track 6, so now we're going to move on to track 7, which is a little song called And Then There Was One.
1 p.m. and I just woke up again.
So,
I want to throw it over to P-Dub.
So, and there was one, I would say it's like the first time that he realizes that like things are wrong in the house and that it's just him. He's been so consumed with trying to complete his work that he's kind of failed to realize that he's the only one left and he has really no idea like where everybody went.
We've been paying attention.
yeah, not bad.
This is progress.
All right.
Holy cow.
Very good.
Dude, not
Not yet. You have to earn it some more. No, I think that was I think that's
That was
pretty
good.
close.
I mean, that does it.
Essentially, the last track, Earworm, he was so obsessed that he completely tuned out his parents in the previous track before that, trying to implore with him, hey, wake up, realize that there's some weird stuff going on in this house. And when he comes to, another change has happened in the house. He comes out of his earworm stupor and realizes, oh my God, I'm all that's left. There's actually nobody left in the house.
Yeah, his parents were kind of the only other people that we had referred to remaining in the house. If there were others, we haven't talked about them. But essentially by this point, everyone's gone, and the protagonist doesn't know how it happened. Like sort of in the same way that we talked about in the last part in Dance With Me, how the two girls, he's a little uncertain about how they disappeared, and we weren't specific about how they disappeared, whether it was a car, them getting hit by a car, or them physically dissolving, or just being
Walking
sort
out
of
of his
metaphorical for them walking out of his life. Sort of along those lines, this time there's really not even anything that he saw for him to be uncertain about. He wasn't even sort of aware enough of anything to notice that everyone else was gone by this point. So it is a moment of him surfacing from that state of obsession, kind of just long enough to notice that he's all by himself in the house now. And even in that light, and what I kind of think makes the emotions of this song really interesting is even in that light, it doesn't motivate him to change anything. Like, for him, still the only way out of this scenario that he can see is like, oh, well, I guess back into it I go, because that's the only way that like all of this will have been worth it, is if I can just continue to work on this and eventually finish the opus. Anything else to add?
No, I just find it funny. Like what's the logical thing to do? Well, I guess I'm just going to go back to work.
I guess there's something to that, like just not acknowledging reality, or just not dealing with loss or anything like that.
Right.
Or instead of dealing with it, you go back to kind of what got you there in the first place.
And
Yeah.
I'm glad we touched on this, because this is actually a thought that I had. I think I want to do one more video at the end of this little series we got going on, and we touch on some of our interpretations of the album and some of its themes and what some of the things could mean. I think right now, I like that we touched on it a little bit, but I think more along the lines of like, let's make sure we got the story out and we'll leave people to interpret. And then I think at the end, I think it'd be a great idea for us to touch on what we think some of the themes might be.
Aliens.
Yeah, I like aliens. We'll talk aliens.
So, I mean, anything else to do with There Was One, or?
I mean, nah, he wakes up and realizes, oh my God, everyone's gone and there's nothing left for me but to double down.
Yeah.
Find a
So,
way
I
to
mean,
complete the work.
yeah, this would be like just at this point in the album, the perfect spot to like stop and cut to another video, but we're not going to do that. we're gonna jump straight into the next track, which is 4D printing.
Which
does have one
boy,
lyric.
This is a doozy. Oh yes, the one lyric.
Yes.
Let's actually tap dance on that just a hair. What are we talking about, and how did it happen?
So
Okay.
we were. I think it was Cole and I. Paul, were you there?
Yeah, we were in the process of literally getting the album uploaded.
Yeah.
And we were going through like getting all the lyrics set up on the site we released it, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but we went to a point where I think Cole accidentally clicked that 40 was not an instrumental, and that it left a spot that we had to put something for vocals.
Or it wouldn't let us post, right?
Yeah.
It was what it really was is on this page where you're uploading the album, they're like per track. It's not like, okay, you do this track and you check all the boxes and then you hit okay and then move on to the next page. It's all on one page. So for every song, there's this massive block of check boxes to hit and things to upload and all of that stuff. It was just a lot to remember. Mm-hmm. And one of those boxes that you could tick is to say this song is instrumental, it doesn't have lyrics, right? And we did that for Implosion Overture, but we somehow missed that for 4D printing. And so afterwards, then the website would sort of prompt you for lyrics on every single song, which we were able to do, except that 4D printing doesn't have lyrics.
Because it was either that we redid everything, right? Like started from scratch.
Honestly, I don't even know what the process would have been to change that.
I'm not sure it would have allowed us. I think that was kind of what we ran into. It was
Well, I
like,
think James-
hey, too late, buddy.
Well, I think James had the idea, why don't we just type whoops?
Well, and that it's partly to do with what
situation,
happens.
yeah.
The situation's like what happens in the track, which
But-
we're getting ready to touch on.
But
I wish we had the wherewithal to have like gone back in some way and like whispered it somewhere in there. So that way, sorry guys, that's not an Easter egg. If you find whoops in the lyrics, that was, well,
Yeah.
By
the way, what we're referring to is if you happen to go on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever and pull up the lyrics, as you can do on those, you will find that 4D printing, which is an instrumental song, does feature one word of lyric, and that is whoops. And that's it. And it is first and foremost a reference to the fact that we messed up when uploading.
Friends.
suck
But
so hard.
we have since sort
be
of like
fine.
taken it as like having meaning within the song, because even though it's instrumental and there aren't lyrics, there are events taking place during the song.
So what happens after our protagonist decides to double down on creating his opus?
He builds the machine, or attempts to build the machine.
Okay, so how do we go from trying to write a piece of music to creating a machine? Right? Because that's, believe it or not, even though you'll get no context from this in the song whatsoever, that is how we envision 4D printing going, is that somehow he winds up with a device of some sort that is supposed to help him create his opus. But how do we get there? What's the concept?
Well, essentially, and we've experienced this a little bit in our own lives, like as we wrote and recorded Opus, like it took us 7 years to, like, from start to finish to put it out, and you don't go through all that time without sort of starting to harp a little bit on the minutia and a lot of things that don't have very much to do with making music. And so I'm talking things like, you'll be listening to a demo and you'll hear like, in my case, like I don't like how my bass tone sounds right there. So it'll lead me on a rabbit hole of like messing with different pedals or plugins or realizing I need to change out my pickups entirely, but I'm not especially knowledgeable about replacing pickups, so then I have to go and learn about how to solder stuff, right? So there's like all of these peripheral things around creating music that are not actually creating music. and you can sort of start to become so focused on all of those things, telling yourself like, well, if I if I replace the pickups in my bass and it sounds better, then I'll be able to create the perfect piece of music. Or if I just get the right drum kit or the right set of cymbals, then this album will all come together.
I don't like
That new
this
Mega
tone.
Bowl,
You know what?
right,
I
man?
need to add this compressor, but let me run that side by side with this compressor. I don't know. Maybe this preamp, maybe both preamps. Definitely need more power amps. It's just it keeps building and building and building.
Absolutely. There's so many parts to this that become very easy to focus on, and we imagine that or at least I imagine that the protagonist is kind of going through that he's sort of almost losing hope of creating his opus the traditional way, and so he's sort of learning about all these peripherals about creating it, and ultimately winds up after decades, like 4D printing takes place over the course of decades of his life now that he's alone. It's all culminated in this machine that he creates that he hopes when he turns it on, it will make the music for him. Like, it will produce his opus. Like, he feels that he's fed it all of the parameters and he's built it or whatever the way that it needs to
He
be.
has
So that,
all the equipment,
He's
all
letting
the
it cook.
instruments.
He's letting it cook.
yeah, but
It cooks.
and yeah, that's essentially sort of what the song is about, what occurs during the song all up until the very last part.
Yeah, and I like to tell this part because it was, I don't know who described it to me. It might have been you or it might have been James, but like the vision was so vivid that I was like, it's my favorite part of 4D printing, is that there's this grand big swell until finally you get to the end of the song and we outro on this disgusting breakdown. And
Repulsive.
that breakdown in the story actually has a visual image that goes with it. Imagine when he turns this machine on, you know, the music's building and building, the machine's whirring to life, and then all of a sudden, when whatever is supposed to happen is about to happen, the machine literally cataclysmically destroys itself. I just imagine, like, parts flying everywhere, like ceiling tiles falling off of the ceiling, you know, lightning bolts shooting out of it and scorching the walls, you know, just awful, terrible stuff. And so the machine is actually blowing up during the breakdown.
Yeah,
It's busted.
And it be busted. And if you're paying attention to some of the riffs in the song, that breakdown is a corrupted version of an earlier theme. The little bump bump the bump 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 bump. It's a corrupted.
That's
what
right.
I call the machine theme. This is how I thought that dun 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 dun.
That's
dun,
good.
Dun, dun, dun. But it's slowed down. It's all tritones, and then you have these sound effects in the background, which is just a guitar, but we made it to sound like a whole bunch of glitches and electrical noise happening.
I had forgotten that we kind of did as the meme says, and we brought the riff back, but slower.
Yeah, we did. We did.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we
There's
put
a
a
bell
little,
and everything.
there's the little bell and
Yeah,
everything.
we got the bell.
Yeah, we did the
Dive
metalcore
bomb.
thing.
We just didn't have like
Very
Phil
nice.
going, "Here we go," or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So that's 4D printing,
Yep.
which brings us to the longest song on the record,
Big Kahuna.
the epic,
Yeah.
which is within the realm of possibility.
Very nice. It's my favorite.
So this one's got a lot going on in it. It's one of the more important songs narratively. So
Well,
you
I
got
guess it,
anything,
I guess it never says anything necessarily. I guess you don't get like a literal sense that the machine's actually blown up. But I mean, it literally starts off with
The only indication you get is at the very beginning.
that was it. That's all that I had in me.
Yep. The damn thing I gave half a century lying in wreckage on the floor.
ground.
Sorry, ground.
God damn it, Phil.
Right? It's not like I
The
got
one who sings the lyrics.
On the floor.
That's good.
And then aliens come down.
Yeah, then aliens.
So the machine, though it explodes and fails, it doesn't do nothing. It actually does, in fact, do something significant.
Which I like what that implies.
What does it imply?
I like to think that
Sorry.
you guys are awesome. That the idea of the track 4D printing is that the song is so all-encompassing in its like glory and its magnanimous and its concept and themes that it would exist outside, you know, the realm of 3D and enter the realm of like 4 spatial dimensions, you know, which you get into theoretical physics and all that, it gets weird. But he did not achieve it. However, because he had gotten somewhat close, something did happen.
Yeah.
Or the next character that is about to enter the scene.
Yeah. So what the machine does do is it does some weird kind of time travel sort of stuff and brings him into contact, or brings someone to him, and that someone is an older version of himself. Now, mind you, by this point, the protagonist is definitely, like, in his 70s at least,
Yeah.
right? If not, maybe a little older.
His knees are hurting.
So the older version of him is probably very old by this
Right.
point. And essentially, what that older one reveals to him, why there even is this older one of him to come speak to him, is that through some phenomenon of physics or whatever, the universe is, I mean, it says it in the lyrics, like the universe is collapsing into a bubble that surrounds the house. And, you know, when something like that, something like the universe collapses, it's not just going to be collapsing space, it's going to be collapsing time. And so it's causing these events to sort of cycle around and repeat themselves, only to the extent that, like, sort of each successive loop is sort of able to do things slightly differently, or they're able to become aware of what's going on. And essentially that's what happens here, is this older one who has already kind of worked out what's happening is able to come back and communicate that to our actual protagonists because of the machine that he built. Essentially, the machine exploding was able to sort of open this rift by which they could communicate. And so at that point, our protagonist learns that, like, it's it's not just like that his world has been shrinking metaphorically. His world has been shrinking quite literally.
Right. I have another interpretation of this particular scene,
Sure.
right? Because, like I was alluding to earlier, it would imply that he wasn't entirely on the wrong track if he is the one who actually brought his older self into the present.
Right.
Right? Or the other interpretation, since the reason the older self is coming back is to try and pass on what he has learned, right? Which we're going to get into why he's passing it on. It's basically he's wanting to fix all the things that have gone wrong, you know, in this universe, right? I like to think of it as the older one is the one who came back, and the timing was coincidental, right? The reason he was able to come back is because he actually completed the Opus, and the Opus is what has allowed him to travel backwards.
See, there you go. We all have different interpretations of this stuff.
Regardless, however, the older one has now returned and is explaining to, you know, our modern protagonist, you know, the one who the story has been revolving around, like, I have the solution. I can help you fix all this. And at the crux of the song, there's actually the only time in the song where we have like spoken word, where there's actually a dialogue between the characters. And some people find it a little cheesy. I think we pulled inspiration from like older prog stuff. I definitely thought of like Dream Theater's Honor Thy Father and things along those veins. But me personally, for that section, I wanted a way to convey the idea without having to force it into a rhyme structure where I could give you exactly what's happening, because this is the most abstract concept that's happening on the record, right? And I wanted the audience to hear the conversation and know immediately what's happening without having to try and get vague and confer it in some weird way. And so what actually happens in this moment is he tells him, we can fix this. But the problem is, there's no one here in your timeline left to save. I was hoping to come back earlier, but it didn't happen. I'm here with you now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass on my knowledge to you, and then you're going to have to do what I did for you, for your younger self. You're going to have to go back again. And at the end of Within the Realm, he's wrestling with the idea that he isn't actually going to be the one who gets to save the world. That he's not going to be the one who gets to finish the opus and share it with anyone. Yes, he'll get to finish it, but he'll never get to share it. Right? Which the only way he can save the universe is by, finishing the opus, but it would be a waste because there's no one to share it with. So he's going to pass it on. That's the decision he finally comes down to after wrestling with it, which is the instrumental section, right? Within the Realm, right before all the crazy instrumental stuff. That's when he's coming to grips with, death for us, life for him, so the cycle can begin again.
Right.
And I think I like to imagine that the instrumental section is him internally wrestling with the decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose one area in which my interpretation differs slightly is only in that, and this is what I think makes his decision hard, is that it's not just that he's not going to be able to save, the world, or that there won't be anyone to enjoy the opus or whatever. He legitimately won't be able to finish it. He can't finish it, and the older one wasn't able to finish it either, because the thing that allows him to finish it is
going back in the first place.
Well, is him having good, healthy relationships with the people around him. That one of the very things that kept him from being able to create art is that art is inspired by your life around you, and that part of that is the relationships that you have with people. And if you're not really doing that, then you won't be able to create your sort of ultimate masterpiece or whatever. So for me, it's not just that, that he won't be the one to see the world enjoy his opus. He won't be the one to be able to finish it at all.
Yeah.
But it's only going to be finished if he passes on this information to his younger self. That's just how I saw it. Again, even though we've all sort of participated in the lyrics with this, we all sort of pictured different headcanons of how this went. So Within the Realm, definitely one of the biggest, most crucial songs of the album.
And trippy, story-wise.
Very trippy. It's we're well out of the murder mystery area now. So I think we'll probably try to do one more part in which we try to capture the last two songs, and then, as Phil was talking about, some of the themes as well. See if we can get it down to just a 4-part thing. So if you've stuck around this long, thank you. You're almost there. Only one more part. We're almost there. So, see you in the next one.
See ya. Later.